here this diagram is your Unix architecture, Unix components, even between kernel and shell relationship, everything will be considered here. So, when we talk about the Unix component or architecture, so we have kernel, shell, files and process, right. So, in kernel, what is the kernel? Already we discussed that it is the core part of Unix operating system. So, the kernel is known as an operating system. It interacts with the hardware of machine. Even you can write kernel is the core part of Unix operating system, right. That is the kernel. Then shell. What is the shell? Shell will interact with users. So, anything if you want to interact on Unix operating system, you are going to use shell only. Then it acts as a command interpreter, right. So, it will whatever you are going to type, that will translate, that means the command what you are going to give there, that will be translated to the user command into an action. So, what command you give, it will be converted into action and it will be display the result, that is your shell. Next we have the files and process. So, file is an array. What is the file? File is just information. So, file is an array of bytes and it contains any data. It is written 2 line, there is a mistake. Okay. So, file is an array of bytes and it will contain some of the data. Process. So, a processing program under the execution, whenever you execute anything, the process will happen. So, any execution happen, even you write the command, that is also nothing a process. So, that is your process, and process will be belongs to any separate hierarchical structure. So, that we will see that how the process will be there. Then we have system calls. So, system calls are used to design when you have developed any system call application that is going to communicate with the kernel. That is what we are going to learn, system programming. So, your application should communicate with core part of the operating system, that is called as kernel, and there are more than thousands commands in Unix, okay, but there are few set of function will be used for your system calls, which will be communicating with the kernel. There are several commands are there, but only few you are going to use for communicating with the kernel. So, that is what, as I mentioned, Unix system programming, Unix shell programming. So, you can say that shell is there, shell you are using the shell, you are going to access whatever the users write there, right, it will be communicated, and when you want to communicate with kernel, then you are going to use system call. That also we have the different several functions which is defined, that we will discuss later on. As of now, just remember there is something called a system calls is there. Okay, and this is the diagram which already we have discussed here, that you have the core part, that first hardware is there. So, hardware is going to communicate with the operating system, and that operating system is nothing, it is a Unix, or it is also this operating system core part is called as kernel. Then you have the different shell commands, those are like ls, sort, sed, who, ps, star, there are more, not only limited to this, there are more also. Then you have along with, you have another application software, on the top of that you can install. So, and when you want to communicate, you have the shell access, user will get a terminal and you will be able to access the whatever the command you want. That is generally, these are the Unix component and or Unix architecture. When we talk about Unix environment,